I was wondering just recently, what's going on in the mortgage industry regulatory world in the eyes of the Texas Department of Savings and Mortgage Lending? Today we're going to talk with Caroline Jones, Commissioner of the TDSML, and find out what she's seeing. This is the Mortgage Banking live stream. Welcome. This is the Mortgage Banking live stream. Today is September 30th, 2020, last day of September. I'm Troy at Garris Horn. We are here to educate, to connect, and also to entertain. We do this live because it's fun. It feels a little more real, and in today's world, I think that's important. We're going to do a quick business update. We're going to do a quick regulatory item, and then we'll jump right into the main segment of our talk today. If you have any questions, as always, send those to me at Troy at Garris Horn, or you can text them over to me. My contact information is down in the description on the YouTube channel. Very easy to see. It's just below this, and you can send it over. We always try to get to all of the questions, all of the comments. We also try to put onto the air important information that helps out if anybody has a topic that they want addressed. Before we get going, a couple shouts out. The National MBA, as you know, I'm a big fan of National MBA. They're having their annual convention October 19th through 21st. That's going to be a virtual conference this year, of course. Today is the last day for early bird registration. So if you haven't registered already, do it now if you want to take advantage of that discount. Similarly, Texas MBA is holding its annual symposium and reverse mortgage day. Those are on November 17th and 18th, back-to-back virtual conferences, and that always has fantastic content. I'm obviously partial to the Texas MBA, and those will have some great speakers there. We'll have some good information and it's also a way to connect with people, even in this virtual world. Perhaps even more importantly in this virtual world, those are very important. Couple of thank yous to some of the supporters we have here. So James Eiley, James, great seeing you. Thank you. We appreciate it. I hope you're doing well in your new venture there. We're hearing great things about you as always. Armand Corsani, thank you, Armand. I met Armand just recently. Very interesting guy. And Armand, thank you for the support. Burton Embry, one of the superstars in our industry, in the compliance world in particular. But Burton's over in his new gig at Panorama, and thank you, Burton. We do appreciate the support. Did you guys watch the debates last night? Oh my goodness. That's all I can say. Oh my goodness. I'm going to move on. Mortgage apps are down a little bit, 4.98%, 4.8% rather. This information comes out of the MBA, but apps are up year over year. They are down somewhat just from the week prior, but this is healthy cyclical types of information, and the way that the housing finance industry works. It's a good sign. Some weeks they're up, some weeks are down a little bit, but as a general matter, they are going up, and mortgage credit is generally available. Although, as we talked about recently, there is some tightening there. We got to watch that. But this industry continues to be a buttress in the economy overall, and there is some hope there in the sense that if housing remains strong, generally the economy remains strong. That's a good thing. Loans in forbearance down the 16th straight week. So 16 weeks in a row that the numbers of loans that are actually in forbearance in the portfolios around the nation that are reporting are down. They are under 7% now. You'll recall that they started way in the high 8s. And this is also helpful information, I think, or it's a helpful sign. This economy is rolling into the fall season, of course. Nobody quite knows what is going to happen with coronavirus. Nobody quite knows what's going to happen with the economy. And we have an election coming up. It's getting closer and closer. And so we have to keep our eyes on those balls that way. But again, the loans and forbearance, people that are in forbearance, those numbers are down somewhat. One quick regulatory item before we roll into the main segment. Tomorrow, you'll recall that the CFPB extended the deadline for comments on its new seasoned loan QM category. So this is a notice of proposed rulemaking that the CFPB put out. Tomorrow is the deadline for that. So frequently people talk about all of the problems that regulations have and how the regulators have forgotten to address one particular issue or another. The notice of proposed rulemaking is the moment, the time where regulators come and they say, we have this issue that we need to address. Here's our proposed way to address it. And what do you, the public, think? So they ask the entire public. So it's people in the business, people that are consumers or advocate for consumers. Everybody gets a chance to chime in. This is the way to make your voice heard. So tomorrow is the last day. We've got a lot of people that are making comments, that have made comments. But if you want your voice, if you want your input made, then that's the way to do it. It's this notice of proposed rulemaking. Tomorrow's the deadline. And you can submit those comments directly to the CFPB. Today, our main segment is with Caroline Jones. Caroline is the commissioner at the Texas Department of Savings and Mortgage Lending. And she is a person who has a lot of experience in the industry. She came out of the industry. She was in-house counsel. She then became general counsel at the Texas Department of Savings and Mortgage Lending. In 2014, she was appointed the commissioner. And Caroline, welcome to the Mortgage Banking live stream.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate you inviting me to be with y'all today and talk to you about what we're seeing in Texas and at the Department of Savings and Mortgage Lending. I'm going to ask you real quick, can you hear me well?
We can hear you just fine.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Then I'd like to start today with COVID and the topic of the year and tell you some things about how that has impacted SML, but more importantly, some of the things that we've done to offer some relief to the mortgage industry at this time. And then I have some other comments about Texas specifically and what we're seeing with regard to the mortgage industry. Perfect. So in March, when we all started hearing more about COVID and figuring out what we needed to do, SML did begin working remote. Now we've been open full-time all during the pandemic, totally accessible, but most of our staff is working remotely, although we are incrementally getting a few people back in. One of the things that we did early on, mid-March, was to change our exams to offsite for the mortgage industry and the thrift industry. We also regulate state savings banks who have most of their assets in mortgage products. However, for today, I'm going to stick with mortgage companies, mortgage bankers, RMLOs, and loan servicers. So we have been conducting all exams offsite. For the safety of the licensee staff, as well as the safety of our staff. We have had a few requests for postponements of the exams. The company perhaps has their records paper, which makes doing an off-site electronic exam difficult. So because that is related to COVID, we have accommodated those requests. We, along with the other financial agencies in the state, issued guidance on COVID emergency measures. And we also, SML, requested some temporary suspensions of statutes from the governor, and he did suspend some requirements regarding physical offices and branch locations. He has also temporarily allowed real estate transactions that requiring a notary, for that notary to be done via video conferencing. Links to all of that guidance and those suspensions are on our website, which is www.sml.texas, texas.gov. I will refer to our website as I go through because we have some really good resources. But those are places you can go to see what in Texas has been suspended or some relief offered. One thing that hasn't changed during COVID is SML's accessibility and responsiveness. Our licensees can continue to email us, call us. If we happen to be working at home, the call will automatically go to our cell number. So we're here for you if you have any questions or need any assistance, as we always are. I want to look at the mortgage industry in Texas, moving away from COVID. Texas, we do things bigger in Texas. And Texas, SML, has entity licensees, as this is as of August 31, of right under 6,000. and individuals at right over 32,000. So we basically have 38,000 licensees. We're the third highest licensee population in the state, in the country. Florida and California beat us, but then there we are with a very big licensee population. And as I know Troy knows this, I hope all of our licensees remember that all 38,000 need to renew November through December. And November may seem like it's a ways off, but it's really not.
It's right around the
corner. That time is coming. Well, Troy, yeah, you know that time's coming up. And if you don't renew, then you cannot originate unless you reinstate January through February 28th. So Troy asked me to give some, I'm going to call them tips, but suggestions on various things as I go through that you can do to help make processes easier for you and smoother. And this is one of them. We suggest submitting early. Submit as early in November as you can, because as I said, we do have 38,000 licensees submitting, most of whom submit to renew. Also, if you have any deficiencies now that you know of, go ahead and get them taken care of. If you changed companies and you haven't updated your address, go ahead and update it now. And certainly education, take your education if you haven't already, because that way, when we get to you, if everything is up to date and ready to go, that gets you approved much quicker than if you have to basically go to the back of the line while you do all those deficiencies, et cetera. So
makes sense. Yeah, and there's some great people that are out there doing the training and the continuing education, and so it's a good idea. It's really helpful to get that done up front.
Yeah, it is, and we don't recommend anyone in particular, but there certainly are very good education providers, and you actually can take your education early, much earlier for next year if you decide you want to go ahead and do that. So. Then I know everyone wants to know what we're seeing in exams.
Sure.
And for those who are licensed with us, I was about to say go in, but that's obviously pre-COVID talk, but we do examine about every 36 months if you're 1 or 2 rated. But if we see a large increase in RMLOs or volume, we'll come in sooner to make sure that has not impacted your compliance.
Right.
And if we start getting a lot of complaints, we'll come in and see if there's a systemic issue. So right now, the top 3 kinds of violations we're seeing are, first of all, with regard to the mortgage disclosure, either a mortgage bank or a mortgage company disclosure. So here are some ways you can avoid the violations that we're seeing. All of these are going to sound really simple, but we're seeing a lot of them. One is make sure you provide the disclosure. Make sure you provide the current disclosure. It's from, I think, January 2018. It'd be on our website. Make sure that you have it properly executed if you're a mortgage company. So really, basically, we're seeing people not providing or not being able to prove that they've provided the disclosure, not having it executed or filled out properly, and using an old version. So that's, I think, hopefully can be pretty easy to avoid.
And that's what I'm glad you pointed out too, that so much of this information is right on your website. You guys have a very helpful website in this sense. And yes, it's pretty easy to access that information. And I've always been appreciative that effectively SML tells the licensees, here's what we expect of you. Mm-hmm. And then that's exactly the guidelines that you follow when you come and talk to people.
Right. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because that is true. We're very transparent with what you should expect when you come in. As Troy said, there is a resource area about mortgage examinations, and one of the resources is literally the checklist that our examiners will use when they come in. So if you look at that in preparation, or just throughout the year even, to make sure you think you're still in compliance with what we're going to focus on, that's a big help to you. And our goal is to have everybody know what they are supposed to do and be compliant. So that helps all of us. So then the next one we're seeing is conditional or approval letters when they're used not being completed, being incomplete, or inaccurate. So again, Just make sure that how those are being utilized does have all the information and the adequately correct information. So. And then the third is advertising issues, and those really in this digital world are primarily centered around social media and website, both the same issue, same violation, missing NMLS ID number, and missing complaint notice or link to complaint notice. So those are what we're seeing primarily.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And those I point out to people all the time. Again, pretty easy to fix, or at least they should be, and also very easy to come across somebody's desk if they're not hard to find, and you got to keep copies of everything anyways. So it's pretty easy. Once something is out there in the digital world, it's out there forever. Just think of it that way. And so if you want to keep yourself in compliance, make sure that stuff is right.
That's right. And that brings to mind something else, Troy. Particularly with the conditional letters, what we see sometimes is that the LOS is updated.
Right.
And so one thing is updated correctly,
right.
but it maybe deletes that notice that you're supposed to provide or the disclosure or something. So we do encourage people anytime there's an update in the LOS to go back and make sure the package is still correct for everything else that may have gotten messed up.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. It makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of those. And then I wanted to mention consumer complaints because we do accept consumer complaints and try to resolve them between the two parties. Sometimes the customer doesn't send us enough information to prove the validity of the complaint, and so we close it. Sometimes they do, and we can issue orders with some sort of restitution having to be paid or administrative penalties. Very often we see the two parties resolve it themselves at that point.
Sure.
So, and that's always good. In fiscal year 20, which as I said just ended for the state, we received over 1,200 consumer complaints. 63% of those were loan servicing, 20% were misleading practices, and then they dropped down to single digit numbers.
Right.
So, and that's loan servicing has typically been the highest.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. We were poised to, and still are, to track any COVID related complaints separately, but we have really not received formal COVID related complaints. So as forbearances end, et cetera, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
When we get there, but so far, no, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But yeah, that's good. So.
Very good. Well, listen, I know you're super busy, and I don't want to take up too much of your day, but I will say that we of course, I always appreciate how much you are involved in the community and how much you're getting out there and putting this information out so everybody knows it. But any particular thoughts that a mortgage company should be doing as they roll into the fall with, as you say, forbearances ending, for example, and any sort of parting thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things. I would recommend going on the website and looking at that guidance that was issued with regard to forbearances and other things, the COVID specific. And I would again suggest looking at the items that I've mentioned that we're seeing done wrong. Those aren't necessarily COVID related,
sure,
but that we're seeing violations on. And I do want to mention, you were mentioning on the federal side rules, we do have some rules that have been published in the Texas Register for comment.
Right.
Some relate to loan servicing, Chapter 79. They were published September 4th. Comment period closes October 4th.
Right.
Again, for
just
80 and 81.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's just a few days ago. 80 and 81, mortgage bankers, brokers, RMLOs. Those were published September 25th, so that comment period closes October 25th. Mm-hmm. There's a link on our website.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to take a look at those.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, I think, I know you're a big advocate of this too, but people really do have to comment. There are many facets to this diamond, and everybody has a different angle. And so if people choose not to comment, they're really giving up their right to educate each other on how the whole process works. And a good rule comes out of everybody chiming in.
It does. It does. And it educates us on maybe some practical implications that we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
encourage y'all to take a look at those and let us know if you have comments on them. Send them in. It'll give you the instructions. So
Absolutely.
that's great.
Well, listen,
But
thank you so much. We really do. It's always great to see you, and we
thank you.
appreciate everything that you do and your whole team.
Well, thank you.
Just all wonderful people, and we, the importance of the interaction between regulators and industry and consumers and everyone else involved is in my mind critical, because that way everything works like a well-oiled machine. And
I agree with you.
yeah.
It's important, and I really appreciate you asking me to speak with y'all today, Troy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
So a couple just additional things. Rhiannon Bolin, thank you for the support. Chance Man, thank you as well. We always have a great time. Again, if you want topics addressed on this live stream, just shoot us a text or an email. We'll try to get those topics addressed. And thank everybody for their tuning in. And Caroline, once again, thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful week and a prosperous week. We'll see you soon. This is Mortgage Banking Live Stream.